Things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar. You're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, eat shit and die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression, because I am very high.
Fucking ran up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash.
Yeah. Care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen.
That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Libertarian Podcast Review. This is Tyler Yonke. I'm going solo on a Friday, and we'll see how that works out. By the way, best intro ever is the one I have there. I want to change it up at times, but how can you argue with so much quality content in there? Okay, thank you, Muse. You can cut the background noise there. Okay. Let's give a little update to how Andy is doing. Maybe you guys don't know. He's not here with me today. So I thought maybe I would just give a share. Maybe we could walk through some of Andy's tweets, just kind of seeing how he's doing and reminisce along the way. I think that's maybe some little this music with this. What's Andy doing? He's posting. Okay. Oh, he's on a couch. Okay, yeah, he's got some troll tweets. He's blocking some people. I don't know what the hell that is. Racist Buckies. Pocket IQ test. I like that. Male camel toe. Oh, David. Horrible. Those guys need to put a shirt on. Oh, there's Andy and Emma. Oh, so beautifully said, Little River Band. I just can't think about you as a friend. Take it easy on me. It should be easy to okay, now we're getting into some other crap. Oh boy, Andy, I don't know what you're tweeting here. Okay, let's cut down the music a little bit. I did want to say that, so his GoFundMe, we'll give a quick update on that one. We hit over $6,500. Andy was able to move to Tennessee. He went over there. He's hanging out with Emma now. He's trying to get his shit together. And I just thought it was a big help for us was Michael Malice. And Andy tweeted out to Michael Malice, his daughter has a picture with the Anarchist Handbook. I just thought that was pretty cool. So, all right, Little River Band, thank you. That's what we have there. Andy, at some point he's going to move Benzo. It's an STD free. So there's that. Yeah, it is STD free. Andy, is he STD free? I don't know, people. Welcome everyone to a Friday. Let's see what we're all doing. I thought I'd go through a few things. I have a plan next Thursday to do another KillPodcast episode. I hope we'll get it done. Robbie Bernstein has come back and forth. I'm trying to coordinate with him. So I was trying to hopefully have that. Then Andy's a problem because I don't know if he has a place necessarily at where he's staying right now, secluded. So if we were to do this and he's there, he's probably having people. It might be as bad as Tho doing his podcast interview from the couch or the kitchen or wherever he was a few weeks ago. Tyler, drink. Okay, I am Benzo. There we go. Refreshing. I'm trying to cut that stuff down. I went to the doctor this week, and for those of you who don't know, I'm big into cycling, and it kind of took me out a year and a half ago when I had a bike wreck. So I just kind of not been doing it as much, concentrating more on work and vibration or adult beverages, and the weight. I got on the scale, and it wasn't a happy situation. So I'm focusing back on that very seriously. I'm going to get back into bike racing this year. I do it on a pretty serious level, so it's not just something you just jump back into. People, you gotta get fit, and so it's not fun if you're not. Okay, let's go. So we're done with Andy. Maybe we'll talk about him afterwards. I did and I'm trying to encourage people to go if you read. I know there's people out there that don't, Cole or whomever, to go check out my Substack. And with that, because I did it, let's see if we can find it here. Okay. I did a podcast not too long ago about Safadine Ammous. So I wrote up a complete rebuttal with him because he had come at me. I called him a liar, which I'll just read the first little bit here, and then we'll kind of go through a few of these other issues. I apologize to Safadine Ammous for calling him a liar on my podcast, episode 44. In promoting this tweet, the episode on Twitter, and then a few other times on Twitter exchanges and in this write-up, if I do. Perhaps I should have said he was lazy. Okay. I go through what a lie actually is, and two of the definitions here is to make an untrue statement with intent to deceive or to create a false or misleading impression. So I think that last one actually plays into a part. So what happened was I had a clip, and maybe I'll play it real quick here just as part of this. No, I'm not going to. Go check it out. But then I thought I would, I did a whole podcast with him. I reached out to him, and then there was stuff. And so I'll just read his DMs to me. This is a guy that, 250, 300,000 followers on Twitter, and me, I'm under 2,000. So he said, and without getting into the weeds of the situation, I'll just say I just thought I'd be interested to read these. I may have mixed up white and copper. It's actually Cooper. And in the interview I did, but I did not do that in the book. Okay, I didn't know he wrote a book about this, which was also contained references explaining my claim. You could have read the book before accusing me of being a liar. I did not answer you because I did not see your tweet. To accuse me of being a liar is a truly deranged thing to do when you did not even bother read the book. Thankfully and understandably, nobody watches your pod. Not completely wrong about that. So what was interesting is he had written a book, and then he goes on a podcast, the Human Action Podcast, and he talks about this little point in this podcast. It's about a church. He calls them a cult, a few other things, and he totally mixed up the people. It's very important who these people are and how he mixed them up. Okay, it's material, as we would say in law. So mixing them up makes a big difference. I equated it to here, like, let's say you have a quiz and you're like, who has the all-time home run record, and you miss the person up. Okay, well, the idea is who has the most home runs. His would be a kind to saying, what did I actually say it? Saying it to like a totally different sport that has nothing to do with the one we're talking about. So anyway, he said that. Well, so a few things about his tweet here, or his thing to me. He admits it's the wrong person. He wrote a book about this, okay, or at least a chapter about it. And this is the guy that wrote the book and then goes on a podcast and gets it wrong. That's not my fault, okay? So I'm like, okay, I get all this. By the way, this was months ago, many months ago. So we'll get here further, because then there's my response. I said, yes, I didn't read your book, but instead heard your interview where you now admit you got it wrong. Okay. I did ask you for specifics to your claim, but as you say, no one watches my stuff or reads my tweets, so your inaccuracies won't go noticed anyway, which is probably his true thing. Sadly, I've enjoyed your work. The issue seems wholly out of context, so it just makes me wonder about the other things you write. If you'd like to come on my unwatchable show, we can go over it more. I'm not going to read your book, but if you want to send me the specifics about this, I'll review it. Okay. And he says, I got a name mixed up. You called me a liar. Go fuck yourself. Wholly out of context. You're being an attention whore, seriously imputing my integrity to get attention because I got a name mixed up in an interview. Dude, you wrote the chapter in the book about it. So I expect you to at least get it right. So then this is my reply here. I wasn't an attention whore. If I was an attention whore, these DMs would have been published ASAP. By the way, it's been months ago. Okay. I decided to dive into this and do a full understanding. I like promoting other shows rather than myself. Even in my episodes, I praised your work. Let the ego go for a bit. I have no trouble retracting the liar comment and renaming the episode in Thumb. I thought a civil discussion of it would help because you got it wrong on Human Action Podcast. Getting the name wrong, however, is material. If you said White, which was the person he didn't say, I'd have disagreements, but ignored you because White ties to the SDA church. This is about a church thing. Cooper makes your comments a fabrication. How do you not get that? You also said the church was a cult. I still think a discussion would be useful because I have a lot of inside knowledge, yet disagreements with the SDA health message. You could actually teach me a thing or two. That's it. My apologies for saying you lied, as I could only assume what you say about your book is correct. tell me to fuck off doesn't offend me at all. I have a life outside of Twitter and this podcast hobby. Absolutely so. What the interesting thing is, then I found his books. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go through this. So I went out, I found he has a whole chapter called Fiat Foods. So I'm like, I'm giving this a total break. Oh, by the way, when he sent me the DM, he sent me a link to help bolster his position. It was a link. His comments, by the way, in the initial thing, which you can take a listen to, have everything to do with the United States and this Seventh-day Adventist Church and their, what he calls cult-like, well, he called them a cult, and then their health message that he says is used to basically have standing with the government and a lot of political power. He said most powerful. Okay. Then he gives me a link to a blog post from Australia that it was. So he has, okay, maybe they're powerful in Australia. I don't know. But it has nothing to do with what you said. So it was interesting. And then I found this chapter in his book, Fiat Foods. So fine, I read it. What I found was more and more and more problems. Okay. And he talks about this guy, Dr. Kellogg, which I've gone over. One of the big things he says here is this lady, Lena Cooper, who he says was part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. She wasn't. I read her biography. It's extensive. They say there's no ties to it, but she had ties to the church in a sense. But just because she worked for an organization, which is her tie-in, which in their educational program, and then left it in the early 1900s, and he's talking about the 1970s, even though she got her master's at Drexel University. So if I, as an example, go to University of Colorado, which I did, or if, let's say you go to Harvard, every time you talk, you're not representing that school unless you're specifically representing that school, the institution, what have you. Going through there was so many problems with what he had. I came to the conclusion, and I'll just read up my conclusion here. Did Safadine lie? Maybe not, as I can't read his mind on all of his claims. Laziness might be a worse moniker to place on him, however, and that is certainly what we have here. I can be lazy in my podcasts, but I'm not lazy in how I do my job, and this is certainly the way he makes his living. My ultimate question is still the same one I raised when I did the podcast. Why would you make these statements when they are so easily disproven and when it is unnecessary to make your overall point? Yes, because you didn't have the proper research in the first place. This reminds me of why some deep researchers really dislike certain popular conspiracy theorists. They do a disservice and distract from the other legitimate theories that hold water when they push forward the absurd ones with the legit ones. Here we have a great topic and a well thought out concept mixed with pot shots, misstatements, and lazy research. What else is he messing up on? Take a shot at that. It's pretty in deep. I give a lot of references and links to items, articles out there. Simple. He could have written his whole post, his book, and maybe he did by using the internet rather than like getting the books. I mean, the stuff's out there. So whatever. Do I have a big problem with Safadine? I'm not going to check out his stuff anymore. That's all it is. You guys can completely do so. Maybe he's really credible on crypto. He probably is, but he also seems like a kind of an egoist. And his big thing is he's on the carnivore diet. I don't have a carnivore diet or Bitcoin to hawk. Therefore, I'm just never going to get the downloads. That's probably the truth. I'd also written a thing about state action and basically given you guys the cover to complain about it's a private company, bro. That kind of situation. Start off with Steven Crowder and Alex Jones mocking the Libertarian Party, but not really understanding that the government is completely involved and intertwined with all that. I give some breakdown here of some cases. Rothbard in his work, Andy and I had gone over that. And then I was starting to draft up a new one here because the Twitter files, and maybe we'll walk through the Twitter files, I think. But the state involvement is getting pretty heavy with those as well. And then, by the way, I got some clips we'll play. We'll do some other things. I don't think Andy's ever going to join me. I never actually sent him a link to join me. Let me just see. Nope, nothing there. So if he wants to, he can. Spud, this right here. It was a good article. Thank you. I hope you're talking to me. You should have said great, by the way. Why didn't you say great? Breaking email leaks. Okay, so we have Twitter files, and we'll go through Taibbi's first one of that. And then this George guy there's a lawsuit. I think it's Missouri and Louisiana, and so there's a bunch of depositions of a bunch of different people, and some of the stuff that's coming out is leaking, showing. So Katie Hobbs, the Secretary of State of Arizona, she had been contacting Twitter to pull things down. Now, look, Twitter is doing this, and I think what they need to actually start doing, and you're going to see, you saw that actually, Adam Schiff just sent something to Elon Musk, basically like, hey, there's a real rise in hate speech, and we need to, you need to do something about that, or we're going to have hearings and stuff about it. And if I was, this may be to the detriment, but I think Musk is in a place where he's just kind of already said, screw it, you're either going to kill me or whatever, I'm going to go down with the ship. Just deny these people. They have no jurisdiction to be doing this. There's nothing for them. Hate speech, you mean covered by the First Amendment? Yeah, that's unless it's incitement to violence, which that's what they're going to try to do. Yoel Roth, the former security head or whatever of Twitter, was talking about how traumatized they were over tweets and stuff of Trump. So who knows what's going to happen? But I just suggest that these people stop. These people being Twitter and the like, just stop falling towards adhering to them, right? If you just push back and say, screw you, like actually what might be really helpful, and it might actually calm a lot of this down, is when these state actors, these senators, these congressmen, these state government people are sending in requests to Twitter to remove things, and now they're getting exposed, even if it's just on a small idea. They might be just cool just a little bit more to not send something in because it's going to come out, and that would be good. Insult meant. It was a great article, no joke. It was well thought out and well researched with links. I thought you did a great job. But thank you very much. That's all I needed. People was so here's the deal. Safedin has not contacted me yet about it, and I don't think he will. And I was I even talked to Kinsella kind of off behind the scenes about this in a sense. I didn't really know how I wanted to go this. I'm like, I don't need this smoke. I don't really need the fire that's going to come from this. But then I'm also like, I don't know. I did research. There's nothing about what I wrote in there that's problematic. He came after me hard, which I totally understand. If that's your job and your whole thing is writing books, okay, and you're going on and someone's calling you a liar, that's pretty outlandish. And maybe, looking back, I could have not said that only to save his ego a little bit, but it didn't mean I was wrong. And matter of fact, with more context, I think I was like, okay, I don't think he outright meant to do that, but he never addressed calling millions of people liar in a cult. I mean, that's defamatory, right? I would think so. So anyway, he's kind of a chump on that regard, but I actually was really hoping to kind of get him on the podcast because I thought it'd be fun. Have a little pushback back and forth, but he didn't. He said to go fuck yourself, which, by the way, I mean, in his defense, he shouldn't have been worried about. Okay, Matt Taibbi goes through the Twitter files. I don't know that I'm going to read every single one of these. As people pointed out, it gets a bit rough to try to read this on a tweet thread. I really want to know the backstory of this. How are you doing this, Matt Taibbi? Are you drafting it all out beforehand and then, just saving the tweets and then sending them out one by one? I mean, it's a thread. So maybe are you drafting them out on a Word doc and then cut and paste and then you wait a little bit? Because I don't think you're sending them out as you've done the research, right? That would be kind of ridiculous. Do you want him to respond? Because we could do a little reply. No, whatever. I mean, if he does, he does. What was interesting is it came to his attention, and I say it in the article, happened to be on a Dave thread that I was tweeting on, and someone else then posted in this comment, and then Safedin somehow got tagged in there. And then, by the way, that person reached out to me, and they said that he was in their DMs calling me a piece of shit. Like, the ego on this guy, I mean, Spud, you of anybody, you react to zero followers type of people. I understand you've got that compulsion, and he did too. He couldn't help it. Because really, what's the point of coming after me about this? Although, I've had some bigger people than him on the show, right? I mean, Dave Smith, when you say maybe bigger than him, I don't know. Okay, Matt Taibbi, curious about how he sends these out. Okay, people, that's the curiosity part of me, which is, I doubt you're like researching and then hurrying, going to your and sending out a tweet and do a little more research. I mean, this is a lot of stuff to go through. So you've probably had it done. So then the curiosity is, why don't you just do a complete tweet thread and click all at once and have it go out instead of this? Send it. What do? Wait a little bit, see what the reactions are. Put another tweet up there, see what the reactions are. Spud says it's my superpower. Yeah, it is. Okay. Item 2, tweet 2. What you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The, quote, Twitter files, unquote, tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It's a Frankenstein. Okay, so a lot of this preamble we don't need. Twitter in its conception was a brilliant. Okay, more. In an early conception, Twitter had more than. Okay. As time progressed, however, the company was slowly this is like Lord of the Rings intro type of stuff. Okay, we don't need to tell this. Slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses for these tools. Great. So tweet 8 finally gets to some nuggets here. 2020 requested connection actors to delete tweets more routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from Biden. I don't think these were from state actors. When I say that, I mean like government sources. Celebrities and unknown would be removed at the behest of the political party. So James Wood gets deleted. Someone mentioned that they went through some of these other ones here, these early tweets, I think on tweet 8 that he had listed, and they were not necessarily, they weren't related to like the Hunter Biden laptop and anything. They're related to like anti-China information. Some of the tweets, I think, that were taken down at the request of the Biden administration. This is just all shit I'm hearing. Dave says, what up, nerds? The young Meacock. David, I also saw your new job with Tower Power Hour, or Tower Gang, sorry, the newly rebranded Tower Gang. Well done. I think Dickie is on the ledge, ready to kill himself over your hostile takeover of that job. But you did the job. I don't know that he did. Celebrities were removed. Both parties had access to these tools, for instance, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what was interesting here is you look at this open secrets of these donations. And I've gone through here and they are, Connor Rowe, by the way, is the number one party, person in Congress candidate that they donated to. That's pretty interesting because later on, she actually comes out and kind of tries to defend the First Amendment and Twitter's involvement in some of these things. So send me a link, you nerd. I don't know. No, just hang on, Dave. I don't know. We'll see. Let me go through some of this stuff. Unless you're talking to someone else. Okay, so Keanu was in there. He mentions here, Taibbi, at one point that about the Biden story, that it was blocked. We understand that. They took extraordinary steps to remove the story, removing links. You couldn't even send them in DMs. McEnany's Twitter account was suspended at the time. They had to get involved to take a closer look and get that back. There was also something here that they said that I thought was interesting. It went up to the highest heads and Vijaya and Jack Dorsey. Where's the part I'm looking for about the government? They say the FBI. So there's a lot of these little things back and forth, which is some of it's like, okay. James Baker, to which former Deputy General Counsel James Baker again seems to advise staying the non-course because caution is warranted. So he's telling people this is a hack, whatnot. At some point in here, here's a Connor Rowe. She actually mentions, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, which interestingly enough, she's the highest paid connected person from Open Secrets donated to the party. Pretty much Rowe Connor is a dude, by the way. Hey, with a name like that, you expect me, maybe you're the one that's misgendering. Have you thought of that, young David? Okay, whatever. I just assumed. That's where else. Okay. Connor Rowe is the first to route the conversation to the First Amendment. So good job for him. Okay. Anyway, a lot of other Democrats. What does mention in here, to Matt Taibbi says, what was interesting though, there wasn't really a lot of government involvement in some of this stuff. What's come out since then is this James Baker guy who had been, I think, attorney for or working for the FBI, was one that was really pushing a lot of Russian conspiracy theory stuff. He then comes over to Twitter and he's her head counsel when Barry Weiss starts to go through a female, by the way, David, when he starts to go through all the stuff, she notices that someone has internally at Twitter, I guess there's a link of like showing who's looking at him, comes about that it's this Baker person. They inquired as James Baker. So when we say that, when Taibbi points out here that there wasn't a lot of government involvement necessarily in some of these tweets or bringing this down, we don't necessarily know if that's the truth, because what did James Baker take out? What did he siphon out? What did he remove from the searches? By the way, he was fired like ASAP. So I'm it'd be awesome if they were able to find that he was taking out more information than he should have been doing, which, you know, is what we could. Okay, so Barry Weiss comes out. First of all, I should backtrack just a tad bit here. So talking about the state action stuff, you've seen it with Alex Berenson. He's showing that the Biden administration was specifically, and Fauci were targeting him, getting him removed. That's a violation of the First Amendment, obviously. You have Facebook and Zuckerberg going on Rogan, specifically talking about being told that the this was a hack. Then all this thing, it's not as much of a connection, partly because Baker may have taken some things down, but the influence, and that when you are basically the entanglement to such an extent, and by the way, there's tests and case law that breaks these things out for how you determine this, things like private communities that are so much as a government type of thing that they essentially are. And so, you know, is Twitter like that? Well, when you're saying like, hey, there's warnings and you've been taking things down willingly from them, and then they start sending you more, and they're saying there's hacking and all kinds of things, you are more likely than not going to be, you know, following in line. If you're not, you know, there could be, as is right now, Twitter is, you know, Adam Schiff, like I mentioned early on, he wants to have hearings and calls Elon Musk to task for hate speech. If you're not following in line, we're going to bring you before Congress. That's complete intimidation. Now you start sending them direct messages to do certain things. You know, there's too much of a connection, and I could only hope that at some point. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Spud says, if you're being honest, I was also doing almost all the clips anyway, and it's not like life is getting benefits and a pension. That's talking about Dickie and David. No, but he was a co-sponsor of the Yemen stuff, so I happen to know who he is. You're talking about Dickie, or back to Ro Khanna? I think he Ro Khanna. No, he stated he wasn't much evidence for foreign government involvement. Okay. Maybe that's what you're saying. No, he did weird. Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that. Tyler, I sent you a DM on Twitter. Okay, let's take a look and see. Everyone's not gonna look at the DM on Twitter to see what we had. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we go. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government. Okay, so no. You're not quite right there, and I'm not quite right either. It's foreign hacks, okay, and any government's involvement. So it could be foreign government, it could be U.S. government. So you and I are both kind of wrong, but you're kind of right with some of that. Make sure I read this. Foreign government, yeah. So what you just, should I bring this up for everybody? Maybe there we go. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks. Man, God, can you mark this shit up anymore? There's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, there might have been the problem. Okay, that was really. I got just about it. Okay, we could probably go through Barry's pretty quick, and then let's get to some show stuff, people. Barry Weiss, new Twitter files investigation reveals that teams of Twitter employees build blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users. Twitter once had a mission to give everyone, once again, I don't need the soliloquies here of the opening stuff. Take, for example, Stanford's Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. And by the way, he came to prominence. I watched a bunch of his podcasts early on. He did some great studies too. He talked about it, the Major League Baseball, that they were quarantining people. He had the perfect studies. So he was doing immunology and economic, whatever it is, studies with the Major League Baseball. And early on, he had good data about the COVID and whatnot. So he was a great person, part of the Barrington Declaration people as well. Okay, so hang on. She's got you here. Spud says, I was using that to argue with someone else on Twitter. Maybe a bot. Yeah. If it's not Safadine, who cares, right? Okay, so Bhattacharya's account, and you can see this here. They have these little buttons you can select here that he's on a trend blacklist, recent abuse strike. I don't know what active means. Dan Bongino. He's a verified user, non-notification spike. I guess maybe that's saying, hey, he's been getting a lot of notifications for this person. Let's mute those out. Kind of like how people talk about YouTube, like, hey, I have the notifications on, but no one's, they're not notifying me. And by the way, go right now, click like, maybe, something else to your show, but we got JC saying Barry Weiss is a hack, just proves that Twitter files are yet another limited hangout being curated by controlled op gatekeepers. Perhaps. I do like the fact that he's going a completely different route than, and by the way, I don't believe that you're correct about her being a hack. I've followed her for quite some time. I've enjoyed some of the stuff that she's done. You're saying that because she's a lesbian? Maybe that's it. And maybe you got a point. She was basically excommunicated from the New York Times. She did go on Joe Rogan and say some bad things about Tulsi Gabbard, saying she was a toady for Yemen or something like that. For the Mossad, or what's his name, that guy. I sent a thread to Tyler about Barry Weiss. Oh, you did? When did you do that? Are you guys sending this to me right now? Do I need to go to my, yes, you did. Okay, perhaps. However you state it, even someone like Safadine Amus might be able to get you some info that you guys can use for Bitcoin. Maybe not for fiat foods. Maybe there's something in there for that. Even amongst all his crap, he did. I'm not here to defend Barry Weiss. I am here more. And by the way, right after this happened, when I say this, I mean the first Twitter files. I went to Drudge Report. There was one link at the top about Twitter, and it took you to a story. There wasn't a bunch of links about different stories. There was one story, and it was a piece of crap story, kind of about it. Then you go to the right wing sites, and they've got a bunch of stories about it. You go to the New York Times, all these other ones, and there's nothing, or it's buried way down, and it's softball stuff, or it's like non-useful. So you know what? Maybe my point on this is like it's coming at us from a different way, and Twitter itself is becoming the news source rather than these other environments, which is significant, I think. Maybe Barry is not the right one. By the way, Alex Berenson said he had reached out to Elon about doing the stuff about COVID. And Elon said, you know what? I don't think you're the right, you're too involved in the story itself. Let's have someone, and I totally agree. And by the way, this isn't the be all end all. The best way to do this would be to push it out there like a WikiLeaks style. And then we can credibly check Barry Weiss, Matt Taibbi, any of these other people against the sources themselves. Which would be a great way to do it. There is something to Safadine's stuff on the food and fiat money, maybe not the religious stuff. I don't know about that, but economics-wise, there is. Yeah, and by the way, David, read my article because I point out some of the solid stuff he has about that and that I don't have. But if you need to, and by the way, it's similar to this. I remember. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He's a Australian, Josh Zepps. He came out against Tim Pool once, and just initially, and this is just an example. You can do it about anybody. Happens with Dave Smith as well. He called him alt-right Tim Pool, and then he explained something else. And Malice talks about this all the time. Once you say alt-right, the rest of it doesn't even matter because the people will tune out. It's now you don't even need to push against. Notice what even Safadine's stuff, when he came to me, his argument was, hey, I fucked up, but it wasn't a big fuck up. Why would you call me a liar? You didn't at all explain, defend your position. So that's the problem. Once you can just come out there, and that's, by the way, that's what he does, David. He ridicules and he mocks, and he does it incorrectly, and he doesn't have to do that. So when he calls these people names, and then he says certain things about them which are completely not true, and I disprove them point by point, then you start to wonder, well, why can't the topic just hold up on its own? And that to me is the most. I do this all the time. I'm in court, and you get documents written by the other parties or what your client wants, and they're just a bunch of shit said by everybody. And you're like, the judge at this point doesn't even care. There's very narrow focus of what they're. Let's not worry about all this entangled stuff here and there. Okay, so that's just my point. Let's go back to here though. Okay, this is some important stuff. Dan Bongino was obviously spiked. This is the only one I don't have a problem with. Charlie Kirk, recent abuse strike, notification spike, do not amplify, not safe for work view. I agree. I'm always, and this one is a Twitter set the account conservative activist Charlie Kirk to do not amplify. I'm trying to do that to my own family with Charlie Kirk. Very, very, not in the same way Twitter is. I'm just, my dad was just talking about him the other day and I'm like, ugh, who? Charlie Kirk? Okay. But anyway, Twitter denied a lot of these things. Okay, so I don't know that we need to necessarily go through a bunch of this more, but they were obviously shadow banning and they had their reasons for doing so, which was basically they gave, sounds like to me, almost everybody on Twitter just working there the opportunity to just shut shit down without much of a problem. Libs of TikTok were a big one, had to do with the doxing thing. They were doxed. There were 10,000 likes on this Twitter page. They of them being of the person being doxed. They didn't take it down, but yet they're saying that this is harmful. And what's interesting is there's always pushback of like, look, we don't really have the, we can't stand on the accusations of hacking, of some of these other things that were harmful content that we're saying it is, but we're just gonna use those excuses until we get caught. Spud says, I agree. Charlie Kirk is a sick bigo. Kate says, this is pretty much what Zuckerberg said on Rogan. I don't know why people are so shocked. Right, Kate, exactly. So, but I think it's important here. And by the way, I wrote a Substack. I'm pushing this today. Go check it out. It's called Statist Action on my Substack, Tyler Yonke at Substack. But that's the title of the episode. And what I say though is these are necessary items for us. How we've always said shadow banning it, and they're like, no. I mean, even today, there's things about. I'll kind of get to this about some of the Twitter people, denying things. Jack Dorsey in 2018 said, we don't do this at all. I mean, I wish we could just show you the algorithm, and it'd be fine. It's like, okay, you're saying it's not happening, but now we have receipts. Back to what I do in court, there's always he said, she said, and it's frustrating because at some point the judge is like, I don't know, maybe you're both just crazy, or I don't know who to believe. But when you can show receipts, now you're putting things in a different perspective. And part of my draft write up on the Statist Action stuff was there's so many times people like Alex Jones and Crowder to say, oh, libertarian doesn't work and whatever, and because it's a private company, bro. And then people like Dave Smith are pushing back on, it's not a private company in its purest form. So that's not even, so you can push back. And my write-up is specific to say you have now the receipts to say, no, that's not true. As you said, Kate, Zuckerberg mentioned it. Here's proof. He's saying there's proof. Here's Alex Berenson's proof on his lawsuit. Here's the Louisiana and Missouri lawsuit against the government and Fauci and all these people. There's proof there. Now there's Twitter's proof and documented stuff. So screw you conservatives, liberals, libertarians who are saying it's a private company or whatnot. This is not how it is. And if you remove the government entanglement and stranglehold on this, then we can actually go over that. So I think personally that's I have David's Substack too. Okay. Nothing I've seen on Twitter files is surprising so far. No, but once again, David, I would say this again. I think this is an important thing. Do you think a congressman or some government entity might be less likely to send something to Twitter now to have something removed than they were before? They might get outed now right away. And I think to me, that's some of the beautiful stuff. Okay. Is there any more of this thing? I think we'll just Barry Rice. Okay. Yoel Roth. He's kind of a piece of shit too. I did have another. All right. Let's remove this from here. And cause I want to look at something real quick about my bookmarks. See if I had any other items here. Oh yeah, this was a this is an interesting one today. This chick Ann Collier says 3 of us resigned from Twitter's Trust and Safety Council today. She lists out who they are, and then they give the reasons why. And, you know, they've been, I did a tweet on it, basically like, look, these people, this isn't a, I'm resigning, because no one really cares. This isn't really a resignation type of thing. It's really about, oh shit, we need to get out of here before the shit hits the fan and we're really, really exposed. So let's get out of here. Now let's also try to blame everyone else and say that, you know, somehow we're victims. And the audacity of it is a bit much. So I don't really buy all that. Okay. Do we have any other? I had some other good bookmarks here of things I wanted to go over. Here's the one from Jack. We'd love to open up how our ranking algorithms make decisions. We're thinking about how to do that without informing bad faith actors, how to manipulate our systems to artificially amplify a tweet's reach into places like replies, trends might be a way to earn trust. Yeah, so it didn't work out so well. Anyway, kind of shitty. I kind of like Jack, and I don't know. We'll see how it is. Okay. Sorry, I just had to replenish myself here. Okay. I thought I had a few more bookmarks kind of wanted to look at. Jax was in there. That has nothing to do with anything. Oh, hey, why is she in my Twitter feed? Okay. All right. I think I'm going to pull some clips. That's a few of these I wanted to get to this week. So I did all those kind of things, the Twitter files. It'll be interesting to see what else is coming up. And by the way, Spud says, yes, there was enough little hints and warning signs combined with the motivation for the state to act as in this regard. Anyone that was defending the state or big tech is being willfully ignorant. Yes, I agree, in my opinion, as she ends it there. Let's go here. FTX. Do I want to get into that? I tweeted out this morning that I think Sam Bankman-Fried is either a plant that was intentionally put into place to ruin some sort of big crypto company. And you kind of wonder, because of his whole lefty, harsh, progressive environment that he really pushed out for so long, or if now he's using regulation as some sort of way to excuse all of, hey, I wasn't regulated. This is the problem. And it could be some of both. I think, though, I just heard this morning that he's supposed to be testifying for Congress. And I think you're going to see him be that person now. He's going to talk nothing, and he has been already, nothing but nonstop FTX, non-regulated crypto space, blah, 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 blah. And, Dave Smith actually did a great breakdown with Robbie. And I was going to actually play, we got plenty of time today. I'm 40 minutes in, but I'm going to just keep kicking through here. David says FTX is a fractional reserve crypto. Yes, David, I'm going to get to that. JC says, and I'm not proofreading these, by the way, they're either not self-aware enough or they just don't care. Most people aren't autistic like us and don't care about cognitive dissidence, perhaps. He's definitely a plant. I tweeted that last night, and his whole family is sketch. And he's got horrible hair. Let's not beat around the bush on that. This is just a scam to get his parents more business. Could be. Okay. I was going to initially play my thread, my comments on the Porcupine podcast, because I thought I broke some things down there pretty good, but maybe we'll hold off on that. And first of all, see what Dave and Robbie are. Okay, hang on, let me bring this in. They talked about this, which I thought was a good. Oops, here. So what happens? See, I could use a producer. I'm just not going to use you. Oh, did I say Porcupine Tree? Porcupine Podcast. Porcupine Tree, good stuff, by the way. So go check them out. They're a good group. Okay, here we go. About fractional reserve banking. Let me know if you can.
A lot of the customers on FTX did have, borrows either, in dollars or Bitcoin or euros.
But as you know, the FTX terms of service tell the people who signed up, none of the digital assets in your account are the property of or shall be or may be loaned to FTX trading. But you're saying that happened.
My understanding is a few things happened. The first
if you pause it right here.
No.
Now this is where you're saying his defense is going to be tough for them to prove it. This is where he's in trouble. Right. That it very clearly says in his terms, this is the agreement that he was making. Was that no? It's like none of your money will be used in this way, and then it was. So anyway, let's keep playing.
Saying is a few things happen. The first is there is a margin trading facility. on FTX, by which users can lend out funds, by which other users borrow funds. And so there are explicit cases where there is, margin extended, where there is borrow lending.
If Alameda is borrowing the money that belongs to FTX depositors.
I got to talk about that real quick. Okay. Margin trading, in case you don't understand, it's to break it down from a stock trading perspective, or even this other perspective. You've got, when you buy stock in the marketplace, it's actually held, much like crypto stuff, held the custodian, whoever's holding it, the brokerage firm, whatever, FTX in this case, they are holding it, and they have the ability to do what's called hypothecate, hold and sell your shares out to someone else to short, whatnot, whatever, borrow against it. And then so you can do it that way. And then also you can borrow against these shares leverage. So you have equity in these shares or this crypto. And at some point you're actually able to, like your house goes up, you have equity in there. You then take a second line of credit out against it. That's the kind of the idea that you're looking at here. However, those things fluctuate much more than your house does, right? So what you're going to do if that's the case, different types of stocks are allowed to have a certain amount of equity fall below. Typically, it's like 35% on stocks, at least, until they are going to say you either need to bring more cash in or we're going to liquidate. Okay, that's the kind of thing here. I think crypto, I don't know the numbers, but I believe it's much less than like a 35%. The problem you had when the big market crash in the early 1900s that everyone talks about, which spurred on the Securities and Exchange Act of 1933, you had, I think stocks could go down to somewhere around 5-10%. I don't remember the exact number, but you have leverage. And then once you have that, you're borrowing more to buy more shares on margin, and then buying more shares on margin. And then when those margin calls come due, the market starts to crash, you bring in cash, you start to sell. That selling spurs and just ignites more selling in the market, and it's a complete crash. So the equity was allowed to go a lot lower, and they raised that up. And then even different stocks, some were like 50%, some were like 75%, depending on what they are. I don't know the exact details for crypto and what they're allowed to do on that. However, he's mentioning here that even though they can trade on margin, they must have had some sort of agreement with their users that they were not going to do that. And then they had a margin allowance to do as well. So I don't know if they're separate, but to me, that's an interesting part of it. Let's keep going.
That's a bright red line, isn't it?
There are a lot
Please
of
pause for a
cases where
second.
that's actually
Sure.
I just want to say objectively, one of the things that's very funny about this is that when everyone's so shocked about the borrowing of depositor money, that's fractional reserve banking. So it's funny every time you see one of these clips and people are shocked. How could you engage in this fraud? Let's understand that that is the fraud of the banking system, but the stupidity of allowing banks that are not by the Fed to essentially hold your funds and engage in fractional reserve banking. At least when you do it with the Fed, there's horrific problems. It costs us all money over time. The thing will explode at some point, but you do have the security of the fact that it's backed by the Fed. You start doing fractional reserve banking away from the Fed, and we can all know that's not going to work out.
Well, this is exactly what I was going to say, and I'm so glad like you picked up on the same exact thing. There's something really funny and entertaining about this to me, that if any non-government entity is doing the same thing, everyone sees it so clear for what it is. You're like, oh, but that's fraud. You can't just fucking do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just like take people's assets and then lend that out to other people and then and they had no idea you were doing that. This is like, obviously this is going to crash. This is going to be a disaster. But it's literally what the Federal Reserve does. This is what the big banks do, and it's all backed up by the Federal Reserve. Is that, for people who don't know, it's just very simply, fractional reserve banking just refers to the what your bank actually puts away. Like when you open a checking account or a savings account, in most people's mind, they think of it as because the term is bank, that they've put their money in a bank, and the bank is holding your money. But that's not true. The bank holds a tiny fraction in reserves. I think now, didn't they lower it to like nothing at this point? I don't even think there are any fractional reserve standards anymore. But basically, for the longest time, it was 10% of your money they would hold on to, and the other 90% they loaned out. Now, it gets even crazier when you realize
continuously get lent out.
The ripple effect of this. So just for example, right, let's say
by the way, you can see the fractional reserve banking issue similar to the margin trading even. There's some differences there. Now, the banking in the Federal Reserve, they've got interbank transfers, and they've got I don't understand all of it. I've been schooled on it at some point. David, I'm not actually sure of your question here. Let's go back to here. Are you free banking or 100% reserve banking kind of guy? I don't like to pay for my banking. Is that what you mean? It need to be understood. Reserve requirements have been 0 since May. Yeah, so that is a problem. People don't understand that. So if there was a rush on the bank, it wouldn't happen. There'd be a problem. So that's obviously that is a big problem. We are not big onto a banking mechanic. I love banking mechanics. Good for you. No, I'm banking. I'm more into trading stuff. So I used to do this a lot, and I still do. But I mean, that was my job, trade disputes and stuff for a brokerage firm. So I'm not sure what you mean exactly, David, by free banking. Maybe I'm not so big onto that, but I will check out Bob Murphy's book. I've got Choice back here and Chaos Theory. So I'll get back into those.
Whatever it is, I open a checking account with $1,000, right? So they now take that account and they put $100 away and they lend $900 to Rob. So now Rob gets a loan of $900. But like most people, Rob doesn't, like if you're talking about a big loan, Rob doesn't just hold that money in cash. Rob puts it in the bank, right? Because now he's got this money in his bank account. So he puts $900 in a bank. And now they put 90 of those dollars away and they lend out $810 to Brian. Now Brian has $800. He put $810. He puts that in the bank. And what do? They put $81 away in reserves and then they loan out, right? And so it keeps going over and over and over again. And you get up to this point where there's like $10,000 out there. There's all of us who all think we have this money, but all that actually exists is the $1,000, the original. That's just on the first 1,000, and all of these people out there think they have way more money. And then basically the argument is that it sends these price signals into the market, like there's way more money than there is. And if anyone ever wanted, and you used to have this all the
Okay, I'm not going to go down. I think that's pretty much what we wanted from there, but it makes sense. There was another. I'm not a big fan, by the way, of Cyprian, but he was on with Schellenberger on Hotep Jesus. And I didn't get through all of it, but I thought there were some really interesting parts. And part of it is because I think Schellenberger is an honest person, broker in a sense, not a broker in the sense that we're doing here, but as far as a stockbroker or anything, an honest dealer of his ideas. And he truly tries to get to the bottom of it. That's why he, as somewhat of a lefty, doesn't, he wrote this book, San Francisco, which is fantastic, by the way, nearby me here in San Francisco, about the ruin, and he ran for governor, and didn't come close because he would ruin a lot of the oligarchy that we have here. And Gavin Newsom, we did a thing with Brian McWilliams talking about his homeless stuff back 13 years ago, and this was my biggest issue, and you're a piece of shit for all that. Let's see what the plebs are talking about here. Kate says SBF's dad writes bills for Elizabeth Warren about filing taxes and ways to stop tax evasion. Ironic. Ugh, I hate that. I mean, I love tax evasion. Understanding money mechanics is good. Free banking would essentially allowing banks to do whatever they feel is best with no requirements laid by any agency. Probably. That'd be fine. I don't know. I need to look into that further. JC says the arguments against free banking are theoretical. The arguments supporting free banking are empirical based on hundreds of years of evidence. Okay, I don't know if CoffeeZilla did the best interview so far with SBF. Someone else told me that Adam on Twitter, not Adam Porky Nutter guy, but a different Adam. And I don't know anything about CoffeeZilla. Other than I just saw that he was on Lex, so I assumed he was someone I wouldn't want to watch, but I've been told no. Okay, let's go to this. I thought this was an interesting clip here. I don't remember why. I just put it in my list of stuff. So we are going to see together what I thought was interesting earlier this week. Okay, let's go.
End of the month when I pay it, I don't have to pay 3 times more than what it was. But on Bitcoin, if I had bought it in November 2021, I would have lost at least 2/3 of my value. So it doesn't seem to me like it's like Visa at all. And not only that, but I can go and use my Visa card to buy basically anything I want at almost any place in the world. How many people are taking Bitcoin? Why would they if the value is going to fluctuate by threefold over a year?
This is absolutely correct, what you've said here. These are incredibly revealing questions. So the first thing to answer to you is the native currencies. And I've said this for years, by the way, and this is what I teach, right? And this is what I write about. The native currencies are not money, will never be money, are not currency, will never be currency. right? So this the BTC, BCH, ETH. Now in the Ethereum community, they know that that's the case, right? BTC, what has happened, I say that the best analog for this is like the settlement of the West. The BTC, that narrative about BTC being money is religious in nature. About those Satoshis that they will someday be money is religious. And it was a religious maxim that was needed in the early days, just like who were the most successful people in the West before the railroads were laid down? The Mormons.
Oh, sorry.
No question. They almost had their own country that encompassed the entire West, right? They were, before the railroads were laid down, the Mormons were in control of the West. Why? Because it's a harsh environment. You need to have very cohesive values about what you're going to do. The problem is when things evolve and you get more information, if you can't move beyond that, you've got a problem. So the first thing is the volatility. Correct. No merchants will accept it because of volatility. That's why we who are doing this moved away from that years ago.
Talking about Bitcoin as
so here what we use
currency.
is we use Bitcoin-based stablecoins. The best way to view the native currencies like a BTC, a BCH, a ETH is to view them as a commodity, to view them like oil. And ETH actually calls it properly. They call it gas, right? So if you're going to have a decentralized network, you need to have some means of accessing that network that's completely democratic. In other words, you've got to have the gas that moves it along. You've got to have the access token. And so what miners are actually doing is they're mining the required access token that I need to pay for my transaction. So my transaction has to be paid for like a stamp. Think of it kind of like a stamp, right? So that's fundamentally what this is. But what you do is you build abstractions on top. So Tether, which is the global reserve cryptocurrency. If you look at the 24-hour volume of USDT, if you sort by volume on CoinMarketCap, it has more volume than BTC and ETH combined. It is a global reserve cryptocurrency. That started in 2014. That was first minted on BTC on the.
Okay, I just thought that was some interesting stuff we can talk about. The bald guy looks familiar. I think he was once. No, that's the different bald guy. The folks said Cyprian. Ugh, I totally agree, but I thought this is what was confusing to me was we've all seen Cyprian. I was a big fan. I enjoyed his stuff early on, and he moves to Saipan or where it is, and I thought it was very interesting. He's interesting. Then he gets with Matt, and then he's tucking on Dave. And it's not that he took on Dave that I had a problem. It was kind of when he started going with Matt, and you're hearing these two talk, and they say a lot about nothing. Just absolutely nothing. I don't really care about the religious shit, and a lot of these things I don't care. But when he's talking about Bitcoin, I'm interested because he's maybe it's a topic he knows he's better on. So and the other ones I just feel like he doesn't. So he has a lot of filler. I don't care about his religious stuff at all. But this thing was actually was good stuff. I'm actually going to record a video on Bitcoin after this. Okay, I didn't know. Did you still have a podcast, Dave? I'll check it out. Send it to me. Okay, I want to play this. This is how do I say this here? Let's get this one. My wife, when I met her, she was somewhat libertarian and more than me, I guess. And then I came to that, and she listens to this morning show here. It's called Armstrong and Getty. It's in Sacramento, and they're on, I don't know, 7-10 different stations, maybe or more throughout the nation. They're pretty good. They used to be even more libertarian. They're more kind of like conservatarian types. There's some things about them that kind of bother me at times, but for the most part, they're really pretty good. This is an interview they did with Tim Sandifer. So I don't know if you know who Tim Sandifer is. He works kind of a Cato-like. Okay, he's an economist. No, he's a lawyer. That's right. He works at, I'm trying to remember the institute out in Arizona. They do a lot of good work. So he used to be on the show all the time. They called him Tim the Lawyer, and he kind of blew up. He writes books. But he is kind of your orange pilled, not quite red, not quite blue libertarian. So anyway, I thought this was an interesting few bits of an interview with him. Let's play it.
But deadly sins, right? It's not just a sin. Not a, hey, I wish you wouldn't do that. It's a death.
Yeah, so it's not only just bad for you, it's a sin. God does not like gluttony. Right. Yeah,
he was displeased with me.
Yeah, me too. I'm speaking to myself. Let's just tone down the gluttony. I ate the last big plateful of mashed potatoes.
Get to the points, the great resigning, or whatever they call that. Here's a young man who's slim and in fine physical condition, not to mention a sharp mind, and that's Tim Sandefur, Tim the lawyer. Tim Sandefur is the vice president for litigation for the Goldwater Institute, author of many fine tomes, including some of my favorites, The Right to Earn a Living and The Permission Society, and also a brand new book, which we'll talk to him about.
JC, I've just got to say, I've never met people more proud of their humility than post-libertarian crowd. Oh my God! I don't know if you heard me say this the other day, but that's a phrase. I was on this Adam Choate, okay, People We Love podcast. If you want to know the ins and outs of Tyler Yonke, a little behind the scenes stuff, and a little bit stuff about me from young childhood through whatever, not this is libertarian stuff, go check it out because he does a dive on me pretty deep. I mentioned in there, I think it was on the podcast, but I've said this. I had this professor in college, okay, a religion professor. And I used to say about him that I've never found someone so proud of his humility. He always talked all the time about how humble he was. So JC, to see someone else using that term warms my heart. And I think that's pretty good. Especially PQAs, you can lick my, okay, let's go back to this. This is a good interview.
In a couple of minutes, but Tim, how are you? Welcome.
I don't know, man. I think I may have indulged in a little of that gluttony myself over Thanksgiving.
Yes. I know you're not frightened by your maker, but it's not always in the best health for all.
Spud Ruckus, this is called Armstrong and Getty. They're on in the mornings from 6 a.m. Pacific to 10, 4 hours. They also put it up on a pod. It's a talk radio show, but they're more libertarian than not. So the great thing about them for me is I listen to talk radio all the time. I'd start dating. Girls don't like talk radio. They want to listen to their Beyonce or some other shit. I meet my wife and she listens to this talk radio show in the morning, which so did I. And I was like, what do you got going here? So every morning we wake up right now and we listen to this and she listens to it every day. If you're a fan of Armstrong and Getty, you're a fag. A faggot is fan of Armstrong and Getty for over 10 years. Faggot, I think that's what it is. They're pretty funny. The quote, my opening about the guy, or the ending about I'll keep fucking that chicken, that's something that they played on their show once. So anyway.
we spent Thanksgiving in Hawaii. So I am now officially what the Hawaiians call a pua'a, or pig. Gorged myself at the luau. So
hey, by the way, I saw that post on your Twitter, you and your wedding anniversary, and the picture of you and Christine on the couch is a Simpsons drawing. Where'd you come up with that? That was awesome.
I don't know. My wife contacted the artist and got that done. Simpsons style portrait of our family sitting on the Simpsons couch. It's absolutely perfect. It would go well on my wall.
That is so cool.
Wow, that is a cool gift. Yeah, indeed. So, Tim, we have a lot of stuff to talk to you about. A couple of big cases, one that you've been working on personally, and then your new book is out, and we want to talk to you about that. But let's first bring the gavel down and talk about the cases. Now, for instance, you were working on an Indian Child Welfare Act case. We've talked to you about it, but for folks not familiar with it, give them the thumbnail sketch, if you would.
That's a federal that.
By the way, I had a whole podcast I was going to do just on this. This is, to me, a fascinating thing, and I'll break it down real quick and then let him talk about it. But when I do family law, so anytime I'm doing something with paternity, one of the first things you've got to check the box off of not is, does this child have of Indian descent? If they are, you're in a completely different context of laws, okay? Which is fine. Then, and he'll describe it here. But just to lay this out, if your child is somewhat, or if you have a certain percentage of Indian blood in you, you're subject to a little bit different rules here for family law.
Law is a federal law that says how states have to treat child welfare cases like abuse and neglect and adoption and foster care if a child is biologically eligible for membership in an Indian tribe. So it draws this biological distinction between kids and says that states have to treat these Indian children differently. And what's amazing about it is it says they have to treat these Indian children worse, because this law actually overrides the best interest of the child rule, which is the rule that governs how these kinds of cases are dealt with, and it forces state officials to send Indian children back to abused homes in situations that would not happen if the kids were white or black or Asian or Hispanic or whatever. And as a result, this law has led to the preventable murder of Indian children across the country in case after case after case. So we've been challenging the constitutionality of this law, and that case went to the U.S. Supreme Court and was argued a couple of weeks ago. I went out to D.C. to attend these oral arguments. It was a very exciting thing to witness.
Well, what's the argument for the status quo?
Because it sounds horrifically racist.
It really is, but the
by the way, it is, David, I don't know the percentage. I'd have to look back into that. It's probably a small percentage, probably Elizabeth Warren type numbers. The reason to begin with was we want to basically, if they're going through a divorce, let's say dad's Indian, mom's not, they get married, they have a kid, now they're separating. They want to make sure that child, maybe dad dies and mom's, and this is kind of the idea, mom has it, they want to make, well, that's maybe the other way. They want to make sure that the tribe has some sort of say over this child's upbringing and well-being. The problem, and I think the case between the Supreme Court now is more along the lines of dad Indian, mom not, dad dies. Does the tribe then have the power and the right to just take that child from mom? The Supreme Court is going to make that decision. But as of right now, I think that's the way that the law would run.
Reasoning behind it at the time was actually they thought they were doing a good thing, because in the decades that preceded its passage, which was in 1978, states and federal officials, they'd been engaged in this program of purposely taking Indian children away from their families in order to forcibly assimilate them with white society. And so that was like, taking kids.
Okay, so there you go. That was the original intent, was taking kids from the tribe to assimilate them to white society, i.e. a better life. Okay.
Away from their families for no good reason.
Sorry,
and so they said, well, how can we stop this from happening? And so they passed this law intending to put an end to that. But as seems to almost always happen, the government went too far the other direction and ended up passing a law that actually prohibits states from protecting these children nowadays in many cases.
Wow, that's just, the results are unthinkable, and just the logic strikes, or the lack of logic, is so troubling. But so that it's been argued, and it's difficult to say how it went, but how'd it go?
Oh, it went pretty well. It was 4 hours of oral argument, which is incredibly long. I mean, that's like 19th century style, back when they used to take all day. And the justices were all very attentive to the very complicated constitutional questions here, because it's not just that it's race-based. It's also, what are the limits between federal and state authority, and what do the regulations say? There's a lot of parts of the law that actually aren't defined, so nobody really knows what some of these terms mean and things. So it went back and forth. There were some really good arguments on both sides. I'm optimistic. I think that the argument went pretty well for us. I'm predicting it'll be a 5-4. I think it'll be close, but I think I'm optimistic that this case is going to declare this law unconstitutional and force Congress to say, look, without regard to children's race, we need to prioritize their best interest. You can't say, this law basically prohibits white adults from adopting Indian children. Children who are in need they're not interested in color lines. They need protection and help. And this law is a law that says that even when there are adults willing to help children in need, they're not allowed to if they're the wrong race. And that's really outrageous.
How much of the oral arguments was that new chatty Supreme Court justice just talks too much?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. It wasn't too much. But, after 4 hours, I think we were all so exhausted that actually it was funny, the Chief Justice said, thank you, the case is submitted, which means everybody's done. Well, one of the lawyers had not had his chance to finish up his argument. So he stood there with this funny look on his face until the Chief Justice said, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. And he went up to the podium and he said, I take the hint, Your Honor. And as quick as you could be.
Yeah.
By the way, 4 hours of oral seems a bit...
Wow. Okay, let's talk about another case that I was asking you about a few weeks ago that had to do with enforcing laws against public camping, blocking sidewalks, etc. in Phoenix. As it need not be reset, but everybody in.
By the way, this perfectly aligns, because I've got a tweet here from Asarchist that I'm going to put up. I don't really care. Toad goes after him all the time about children, tranny stuff. I don't know, whatever. Childless men arguing over kids. Let's just be honest about that. I love Toad, but whatever. However, Ace then puts up a tweet that I'm much against, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Every blue city in the country and some of the purple cities is dealing with this horrific influx of junkie camps everywhere. What's that case about?
Yeah, unfortunately, Phoenix is now the location of one of the largest homeless encampments in the country. Over 1,000 people who are living in what we call the zone on several blocks of downtown Phoenix in tents and on the streets because of a city policy to refuse to enforce laws against vagrancy and camping and pollution and these sorts of things. And as a result, it's destroying the businesses in the area. These people who are trying to run a business in these several blocks that are now being occupied by the homeless they're finding that they can't hire people to work in these businesses. They can't protect the safety of their employees. They can't even protect their own businesses from arson. These people are setting fires to stay warm now that it's getting colder. And one person testified at a recent hearing that he had to have all the windows in the building sealed because of all the urine that was soaking into the place where he works because of these homeless encampments. So several business owners have filed suit in the state courts here, challenging the city's maintenance of a public nuisance. A nuisance is, when you use your property in a way that damages somebody else's property. And the government's not allowed to run a nuisance any more than anybody else is. And by maintaining this homeless encampment now for a couple of years now, and basically attracting this element to the community to destroy people's property, the city is engaged in a nuisance. Now, unfortunately, we had a hearing several weeks ago, and then the case got reassigned to a new judge. So now we have.
By the way, and I'm going to get into this here in a little bit more depth. I love what they're doing. The city is now basically doing a nuisance. Okay, they're not standing, and so I'm going to have some issues. Phobe said, let's go back up here. Ace is shit or this shit? I don't know. Spud says, "Oh wow," and okay, maybe they're talking about some personal stuff. Do I need to look back here? Oh, okay. My oldest son's half Cherokee, and I've literally never heard of any of this. And we went through. Okay, well, good. Sometimes it's best to just be ignorant and to ignore it. Okay, because this could might have ruined your life, quite literally. Okay, I have to do a final and poli-sci class on Creative 101. I think that's what the company was called. Creative 303. Okay, 303. By the way, David, is the area code for Denver. Okay, that is why it is this case you're talking about. I listened to the entire arguments, by the way, of the Supreme Court. Creative 303, basically what you're looking at here. Way to fucking derail me, David. You have the cake baker case, okay? The make a gay cake that came through, and that they were too maybe narrow on their determination as to what that was. So then this person comes out. There's no to make it ripe, and what that means is that the court can actually rule on this. They ask for a declaratory judgment. Basically, a statement by the courts is if they did such and such, would it be legal? And they can ask the Supreme, or they could ask the courts, the local courts, and it worked its way on up for an answer as to what this ruling would be, okay? And that's exactly what happened. So this person says, I want to make websites, personalized websites. Now, by the way, this makes me feel that there is a lot going on here that is maybe you need a judgment, you need some sort of answer from this, and certain groups are pushing this person to do this. You got to be, legit business. Creative 303 is the business. It's a website design, and they do specific stuff. They don't just do like a Wix type of website where it's plug and play. They do the script for you, and she doesn't want to do any kind of gay marriage stuff. So it's completely done on the grounds of free speech. So then there's like 10 pages of stipulated facts. So the parties came together all through this, and they stipulated on this fact is this is this. I'm going to create this website. I'm going to do this. And both parties stipulated to this. So it comes to the court. Supreme Court has this. By the way, some of the lefty judges are embarrassing. Okay, if you think you're not smart enough to be whatever, sometimes you got to just listen to all these, especially the new one. And there's, I don't know if she tries to tie it into It's a Wonderful Life, but it was somewhat of an embarrassing kind of statement there. So I listening to it, I mean, I think the way it's going to come down kind of on the narrow specifics, it's not even religious. It's on the ability for you to speak freely. And this is kind of the things that needed to be carved out. What it really breaks down to me is you got this realization and the arguments there, and you can't push back against things that are, set in law, like the Civil Rights Act of 65 or 64. That you can't just say, well, this is bullshit, because they keep asking kind of accommodation things and things that were kind of go down that. And all I keep thinking is if we just got rid of the Civil Rights Act, people could just do whatever they wanted. Just do what you want. Who cares if you're, Kanye West and you don't want to serve Jews? Everyone is going to know that. They're going to know that, and they're going to go there, and it's not going to be much of a problem. Anyway, so that's the whole idea. David, if you need some help on that, let me know. Let's finish this up.
To have another hearing next week seeking a court order commanding the city to start enforcing its own laws.
Well, obviously, this could have far-reaching consequences if it goes the correct way, to my mind. I don't know where you draw the line at nuisance, but maybe that would finally be the way you break up these camps, right?
That's right. And in fact, there is one precedent already in place. Remember when I think it was Portland, they were operated what they called Chaz or CHOP or whatever the
Seattle.
to set up this autonomous zone in the middle of the city and refused to enforce the law there. As a result, a lot of people suffered, their property was being destroyed and taken away from them. So they sued the city, and the federal court allowed that case to go forward, saying that was a taking of their property without due process of law. So there is precedent on the book that says that when the government just completely washes its hands of its obligation to enforce the law and protect people's property rights, then it can be liable for depriving people of their constitutional rights.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know business owners who feel like they don't get near as many customers as they would normally get because it's so hard to get to their front door.
And what's so frustrating for us, the largely law-abiding, is that they're violating sewage laws, they're violating camping laws, they're violating drug use laws, and just there's a lack of political will, or I should say, putting in the affirmative, there's a political will to ignore the law.
Unlicensed dogs off leash. I mean, it's endless.
Oh, sure.
Refusing to enforce the laws against pollution. It's illegal in Arizona to pollute the public waterways. Well, this zone is within walking distance of the Salt River. People are urinating and defecating on the streets and the sidewalks, and that when it rains, that runs off into the river. Well, no private party would be allowed to do that, and the city isn't allowed to do that either.
I was kind of surprised when you said it's been going on for years, because when you first said 1,000 people, I thought, well, can't you just wait till summer and it'll kind of take care of itself? But it's been going on for years. How do you stay in one of those places in the summertime? Good Lord.
I can't imagine. And of course, in the winter, they're going to start setting even more fires than they currently are, which sets fires to the tents a lot of the time and starts to burn down the buildings. And we're talking about these tents are basically situated between the main campus of Arizona State University and the state capitol building in Phoenix. So you're talking about places we would really rather not have violent crime and arson going on.
Well, listen, I want to leave time for a discussion of Tim's brand new book.
And sorry, I didn't get to his book there. But let's let the crime and all that be just only solely allowed in the state capitol. That's where we should do that. Okay, so I got to get to a few comments here. Ace is the shit. I don't know about that. Private property solves this problem. Yes, it would. That's been my answer. And I talked about this, I think it was on a different podcast as well. I was like, we already have something in place. It's called private property rights. However, Clint, by the way, we just went over his podcast with that drooling leftist, and Clint made a great point, which I think was something I need to incorporate here, and I'm doing it right now, which is he would love to defend his own property. Okay. And if he's not able to, then the government should be coming in to do it if they're not allowing him to do it himself. That's exactly what we have. A lot of these businesses, they're not, like California. If you are not, and then by the way, this homeless thing and what Tim Sandifer talks about in Arizona is even fivefold, probably more disgusting and problematic here in California, where I'm at. You may not see it in your state. Maybe Ace doesn't see it in his sidewalk. So that's not that he's going to say what I'm going to show you here in a little bit. But if you have a business and your sidewalk and your own business, you're not able to protect it, okay, because the government is not letting you, then fuck you for saying that you shouldn't be able to enforce the government to do so. And so you want the government to do it. Now, Tim Sandifer's idea as a libertarian attorney is like, fine, then you are creating a nuisance and we're going to sue the shit out of you and we're going to get you to enforce this thing. And they've had luck doing this, and good for them for doing that. And I appreciate that, and hopefully going forward. Okay, Benzo says, I've heard about it, but I thought it was regulated to tribal lands. Nope. Check out the Supreme Court case. Maybe I'll do a podcast just on that. Hey, Tyler, did you notice Slurp Gang came back? No Ace, though. I did notice, of course, a podcast review. And maybe I should talk about that a little bit. Once again, they used to have the best open in podcasts, except for me. I just love the song that they had and the way that they paused with Tom Woods coming in there, shit show or whatever you're talking about. It's not quite the same. Just saying that. And by the way, some of those guys, they all blocked me when I mentioned their show once. And I didn't say that they were number one. So I guess they're a little bit pussy hurt. I love Nick. He's about the other ones. That Jay guy, I don't know. Maybe they'll clip this and do something. But man, he's annoying. So maybe I need to get back into it. Benzo says, I've never heard of this. Basically, universal in all things regarding child. Okay, So I went through, didn't tell me shit. Spud said, gross. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't ignored until the plague breaks out. Not even being hyperbolic. Don't know what that's about. Ace is awesome. Agree with him on 95% of his takes. Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I thought Lorenzo was your oldest son. Okay. question is whether public property should be treated as free ground or like a reasonable property owner would. Okay, I accept that, but that's not even what we're really talking about here in a lot of sense. When you're having these businesses and the sidewalk, they're not even to be able to protect. How many videos have you seen? And David, I could probably send them to you, where people just come into a store in California, steal stuff, and walk out. We had that bodega owner in New York that decided, I'm going to stand up to this. I'm going to shiv the guy or whatever. He gets arrested. This is the kind of shit that goes on. So as Clint said, if you're not able to protect your own property, then these people better do it. And if they're not going to do it, now what are you going to do? You're going to have Ace yelling at you? Yes, probably going to do that. Diversity hire. Okay, I've got to catch up here. Yeah, the title says freedom of speech versus freedom from discrimination. I imagine you're talking about the 303. Is it worth the whole episode on progressive prosecutors? It is worth a whole episode. Yeah, I should probably do something like that. I'll be going to Rothbard on this. That's what David says. Okay. But my racism. Essentially, okay, David says, basically I had to write a judgment on Creative 303 and I'll be throwing out the Civil Rights Act based on the 9th Amendment. Well done. The 19th Amendment, 14th. What about the 14th? Maybe it's the 14th, David. Everything in HR managerialism, property rights, to everything from HR managerialism to property rights violations, etc. Okay, let's get to, that's what JC said. I'm not, maybe I didn't follow. I took a while to catch back up. So maybe that's my problem. Okay, let's go to this one. This is what Ace has. So here's this tweet. It's this guy, LA guy for some local news magazine. He said, an unhoused man. Right there, you've already got problems. Okay, an unhoused man who just got off work, so he has a job, lost everything during a sweep in Westlake. When he returned to his tent, and LAPD officers refused to let him retrieve his belongings. They were tossed. So, okay, this is the public. And Ace, here's what Ace said. Those men are nothing more than thieves. Fuck you, first of all. And I mean that with all due respect, because no, that's not the case. I am sorry, but here's where we've got to the point. And you just heard the litigation going on and the community, and it has. There's a problem here. Okay, this is not a guy that has every right to be where he's at. Finally, maybe it's due to the lawsuit that we're talking about. LA, I don't know if they have similar ones, but they're trying to finally remove these people. Where they're going to go, I don't know. But part of the problem, Ace, that you're going to have to maybe acknowledge is, let's get to the root always, which is public funds helping people be in this position. Look at all this stuff. Why is it situated here? If he has a job, I know housing sucks. Okay. It's high cost to live in California. Then maybe don't live here, but he's living here for a reason, which means he's getting a lot of public assistance. That's the problem you have. Over $35,000, $50,000 you can get in public assistance easily. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for this situation right here. And then to say that these guys are thieves, I don't know. I mean, I just posted out something about, it was Australia, and this police officers come in and they're taking the child away from her mom because the mom won't vaccinate this baby. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, back the blue against the wall. Okay. That's kind of the thing. Those guys shouldn't be doing this. Maybe you're saying these guys are doing the same thing. I don't know. If you were able to enforce your own private, and people are like, oh, well, this is the private sidewalk, a public sidewalk. Maybe that's the issue. I don't know. I wouldn't want my business down there. And I know not everything's, fantasy world, and I'm going to sound post-libertarian here, but I don't agree with those guys either. Living in a fantasy world of and Capistan or whatever else we got going on here. But I'm sorry, you do have a right if you have a business. I mean, look, this is an undeveloped area here, probably because this guy's cyber, and it's a tough situation. But the policies that we have in place don't help this situation. And no, these guys aren't anything but thieves. This guy is. Let's go down the property rights angle. Okay, you have a right. You have no right to privacy if it's not on your own land. So you have your own house. You have garbage cans. If they're on the street, police, CIA, FBI, not CIA, they don't have jurisdiction, can come in and they can look and rummage through your trash, because that is now no expectation of privacy. You don't have it boarded up. It's outside your curtilage, as you say in law. This guy, I'm sorry, he doesn't have a house, but does he have an expectation of privacy to do this? No, he doesn't have any kind of property rights in this area. He hasn't homesteaded this because it's not available. Now, Ace is going to push back and say, it's the people have paid it. That's the taxes or whatever. It's kind of the thing they have with CHOP. I don't buy it. We're in a different situation. You can't just go in and thrash all these areas. So, I don't think he's able to homestead this. I don't think it's his property. So if he's got no expectation of privacy, he's got no property rights. This isn't really his stuff. Finders keepers, losers weepers, I think is the technical part of that. Cool kids call this anarchy tyranny. Tyranny, sorry. That makes more sense. Which is a stupid way of saying the law is a red herring. Okay, whatever. I hate the phrase anarch or tyranny. Let's see if we got any more good stuff here. I think that the 9th would cover pretty well, being that is a catch-all, not outlined rights, which I believe includes discrimination. Yeah, but I think the problem, you might want to look at the 14th, which talks about incorporation of, do your own thing. For any voluntary, okay, here we go. There were voluntary efforts to house the homeless in Cali cities. The government put an end to that right away. Yeah, okay. So once again, then maybe you do what the Arizona people are doing, which is file grievances that they're creating a nuisance, which I believe they are. If you were doing this and you weren't a homeless guy and you just were putting your trash out here, what would happen to the normal person? Okay, let's go here. The problem with public property is that it is incredibly rivalrous. Who owns it? Who knows? But no single person has a valid claim to it, especially homeless people. Well, I think you're right on that, especially homeless people. So it's problematic. I think if you remove it all, so here's the problem with calling it thieves, right? By the ACE side is you don't do it justice as to the reality of the situation, and you're not solving the problem. If this, by the way, was your own personal private property, which does happen in California all the time, and you're not able to defend it, and you're not able to evict people such as this, then is he going to say that those are thieves for trying to defend their property? Probably not. It sucks, but homeless people aren't generally taxpayers. Yeah, no, they aren't. Not only can they solve complex problems, they thrive off. I don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe I missed something there. Also, read my comments above. Oh, Spud, are you talking to me or someone else? So I have to go back here. So he crawls into his domicile, and then they can use the excavator on it. I am sure they were aware of it. Okay. So, it's a bummer. I don't know what else to say on that one. I wanted to talk about a few other, by the way, Michael Malice, and we're going to close up here. We're about an hour and a half in, but I work from home as much as I can on Fridays. So this is kind of, and even then by noon, I'm like calling it a day. So I'm just like, this is fun to do. I love to do these podcasts. By the way, I would encourage all of you, Reed Coverdale had his YouTube channel nuked. Okay. It did come back, but we're all subjected to this stuff. So I would encourage all of you to find my links down there in any of these shows. Go to Rumble, go to Odyssey, find it out there. You can even join me at Locals. I don't know if I haven't really done much there, but I do have a show. A page there. Find my Substack. You're at least able to find me if you need to, if this gets pulled off, and then we can still have our fun times. Thoroughly enjoy playing these clips. Michael Malice this week had on Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore also went on with Clint Russell, Yo Pasta, Couch Surfer guy, not Couch Surfer, is that it? Maybe it is. And Dave Smith, and they had a great conversation. I thought it was great. What I've noticed though, and by the way, Dave also went on that Lilo and Stitch or whatever those fucking losers are. It was so bad the first time. And Dave posts up Sunday, hey, I'm going to go back. And I'm like, oh God, no, but I'll listen. And then the Adam Friended or whatever, he blocked me. Perfectly fine. But you don't usually block someone that says they're going to watch your show, right? And this one was actually better, but it was more boring. At least the first one was so contentious that I enjoyed it a little more. This one was just whatever. By the way, Jimmy Dore went on there before. Jimmy Dore goes on with Dave. There's times where he's on his phone like this, like you're thinking he's not even paying attention. But the best Jimmy Dore was going on with Michael Malice, just one-on-one. Dude riffs on a bunch of stuff. I don't know. And this is what's, I think, enjoyable about Jimmy. A complete disagreement with him on his universal health care stuff. But the conversation with Dave and Clint was interesting, and he hates the government so much that they get him every time by saying, you hate this government, but you want them in control. And I think there's just some logistics that can be handled there. And if, by the way, if we were to rid ourselves of all these other issues, you know, money to Ukraine, everything else, and that universal health care is like the only one we have to fight over. Okay, so you lose that one. Okay, I didn't really know that it's that big of a deal. He makes some good points, they're also straw men, which I don't think are valid, which is if we weren't sending that, well, back up. He says, he gives a number, and I don't know what the exact number is, so many billion or trillion, that the left always says that this is how you cure homelessness. It only takes this amount of money. And he's like, perfect. You just sent all of that to Ukraine. Why don't you just solve the homeless problem? If that's really the number that you're saying it is, let's just solve the homeless problem. Then that's done. Then we don't have to worry about a lot of this other things. But that's not really the way this works out. Okay, let's see if we have, Adam and Stitch. I said Lilo and Stitch. I think that's better. I think Ace is talking about the state sending people to take his stuff, which is technically correct, but he doesn't offer anything to solve the problem. Here's my problem with Ace. When we argue a lot of the libertarian nuance stuff, there's gray areas and there's little things you have to really think about. You saw that with Clint and his argument with the lefty guy. When the guy does push back on something that maybe is interesting, Clint actually is able to have enough sense in himself to say, oh, interesting, I haven't thought of it like that, or I'm not sure, or I'd have to think maybe a little more. But here's my legitimate answer. Ace takes an answer on this. These guys are thieves. And I'm like, dude, I don't know where you're living, but that's not the situation we have with these situations. So, or it's not realistic to this. You're showing anyway. So it's to me, it's not quite the same. Okay, this is fun. Jimmy might be salvageable. I think so. And you know what's interesting about him, and then I'll take off here, is he had the vaccine. He was then injured. He had a lot of problems from that, and he decided to dig into it deeper. He made such a good point. I got to think about it. He talks about misinformation, and he's like, what's interesting, they say that if you read misinformation, you are going to be corrupted. It's like a computer virus that gets in. As soon as it touches, it's done. However, that misinformation is fine for them to read before they tell you can't do it. So it's interesting that somehow they're inoculated and you're not. I also tweeted out, maybe I'm working on this tweet. I don't think I sent it out. Something about the COVID misinformation crowd is also similar to the COVID people are similar to the misinformation people, where, you know, I'm not gonna go down this. I forgot the whole point I was gonna make on it, and I'm still working on that tweet. So we'll just keep that. Benzo says pedo adjacent isn't salvageable. I disagree, by the way, on Toad's take on Ace. Okay, I think Ace doesn't help himself with some of that, but I don't think it's quite right. I did watch a live stream of Jeremiah and Ace, and I thought they were both a little not quite right on it. And then I saw Jeremiah do a stream where he was on Leighton's show. I don't know if you guys know who Jeremiah is. He looks crazy. I know he's not quite crazy, but he does live in like a hall closet. By the way, that's not a hyperbole. That's the truth, according to Toad. He went on Leighton's show, Outlawed Thoughts, and Leighton kicked him off. And so he does this breakdown of how crazy Leighton is, and then he gets kicked off. And then he plays the segment, and I'm like, dude, you are crazy. That's your show made you look crazy. So I did have to side with Leighton on that one. Progressive fact checkers think they're the voice of God. Yes. Okay, we're almost done here. JFC, that was such a disaster. Yes. Oh, by the way, Spud, you're talking about the Leighton thing. Jeremiah showed a tweet that you did, and it was pretty good. Your tweet, that is. The whole pedal situation is no different than any other situation that involves thought versus actions. Yeah, perhaps the stream was wild. Yes, it was. So the problem with even the pedo thing is there's some nuance right there, and Ace wants you to understand there's nuance, yet there's no nuance with this. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay. I saw it. Okay. Yeah, you did, Pet Spud. All right, guys. I think we're done. You have a good weekend. Maybe we'll do another one of these this weekend. Oh, I'm going to the Libertarian. We're doing some party thing. I might see Meredith and a few other people out there. Adam Choate, Adrian. It's in Sacramento. I'm going to get a hotel with my wife. We're going to go party for a bit on Saturday night. See some people, some libertarian things. Maybe we'll get some pictures. And if you're there, make sure you come out and see me. There's no nuance involving children. That's what Benzo says. Well, there can be. And damn it, you guys stop me up here. If you're like 16 and 18, there can be some nuance. That's exactly the nuance we're talking about. And then everyone dancing and trannies and all this other stuff, drag shows. I don't know. So I don't really care. Okay, that's all I'm going out there. There can be. There can be. But I don't want to get involved in it. That's my point. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend. Appreciate everybody being involved here. If you have stuff you want, August 15th, I think, is when we're going to try to do the next Kill podcast. So get your sign up if you can. Also, if you have any suggestions, any podcasts or whatever that you want to have a breakdown, I just saw Dave tweeting out about Reason, that they wanted to normalize and decriminalize, which is fine, but also normalize sex shows. And and by the way, that's pathetic, because I wrote out there that the morality, it reminds me of people that want to legalize gay marriage just simply so that you are then put in a box of having to agree with their lifestyle. That's just a prime example. And I don't think that is. So morality and legality don't mean the same thing, but for a lot of people it does. So, all right. Take care, everybody. Have a good one, and see you on the next time. Bye.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back.
And now.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast. I can't find it anywhere. They don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke. Yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me, I'll...
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert.
He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
I
just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.